Hello students, in the previous video we learned about how the traits are expressed. We also learned about the three laws of inheritance by Mendel. Moving on, we look at sex chromosomes and how sex of an individual is determined, whether it is humans or whether it is certain other individuals or organisms. In front of us, what we see over here, in humans, we have discussed this previously, wherein we have the XX chromosome determining females and XY chromosome determining that they are males. Okay, so the chromosomes, the pairing of the chromosomes determines the sex of the individual, whether it is a male or a female. In some animals, we have seen there is an environmental factor attached to determination of the sex of the organism. Like for example, temperature. The temperature at which the eggs are fertilized, okay, decides the gender, as in the case of turtles. So you see, there is a difference in what determines whether the organism is going to be a male or a female. With respect to humans, there is a genetic predisposition. The genes are involved. They decide whether the chromosomes are involved. They decide whether the fetus or the baby will be a boy or a girl. In humans, we have known that males have got X and Y chromosome, and females have got two X chromosomes. So a female can give only an X chromosome. That's all she has. But a male can give either an X chromosome or a Y chromosome. So essentially speaking, it is the male who can actually decide or determine whether the fetus or the baby that is going to be born will be a boy or a girl. If the male donates X chromosome, then the X chromosome from the male will pair up with the X chromosome of the female, and the resultant will be a girl, as seen over here. But in if the male gives Y chromosome, then the Y chromosome will pair up with the X chromosome of the female. Remember, a female can only give an X chromosome because she's got two X chromosome, and either ways she can only give X chromosome. So the X chromosome will pair up with the Y chromosome from the male or the father, and the resultant will be a male, as in this case. Okay, so in a nutshell, it is the male that decides the sex of the children. Okay, it will be the father who will be responsible for whether the couple gets a boy or a girl. Coming to evolution, evolution is a very important part of how we have come to this stage, whether it is humans, whether it is plants, whether it is any other organisms. Okay, it is a sequence of gradual irreversible change, meaning it moves in one particular direction. It doesn't go back, it goes forward in a way that tries to give the organism in which the change is happening an advantage, or it allows the organism, the individual, to adapt to the existing circumstances in a way that it promotes uh, survival of their organism. So it's a sequence of gradual irreversible changes which took place in the primitive organisms. and evolution is said to be continuously going on. It is not ended. Okay, it is going on, but it is difficult to observe evolution in individual because the changes that happen are very slow. It takes place over millions of years. Okay, to form present day species it has taken millions of years. Maybe from now to another million years we may be something different, but we won't be there to see that happen. Okay, the change that happens is gradual but extremely slow. Okay, so such that it allows adaptation of the individual, of the organism, to the existing situation, environmental situation, or the biological situation present at that particular time. And evolution is brought about by certain variations, certain changes first that happen externally, and then to adapt to the external changes happen within at the genetic level that bring about such changes. And these changes happen either because of combination of genetic material from two different individuals, or in case of the asexual reproduction it happens because of errors. But even in case of sexual reproduction, errors do cause variation, change, which result in an altogether different genetic material. Okay. So these errors happen during copying of the DNA. So DNA has to be copied and then replicated. That's how more and more DNA is produced, because DNA has to be present in each and every cell of the body. Cells make up the tissues of the body, and tissues make up the organs of the body. So the changes which are inherited by successive generations, these changes are then adapted by the end organism or the end species or the present day species, and becomes part of its own. And this change that has been brought about, the gradual change brought about because of this such variations, is broadly categorized as evolution. As I have mentioned, variation in sexual organism, I mean those organisms producing by sexual reproduction, happens because of genetic material coming from two different individuals and mixing up. In case of asexual reproduction, where two individuals are not involved and just one individual is there, so errors occur during replication. The replication process is not very foolproof. Replication is where the DNA copying process is not 100% um, error proof, you can say. Errors do happen from time to time, and these errors lead to a change in the message, in the way how the message present within the DNA is read. As a result of which, what happens is, over a period of time, these changes accumulate, become permanent, and when that happens, uh, a new species may be formed, a species or a existing species with a new capability or a new deformity may be formed. These are caused basically by errors which occur by chance. Okay, sometimes they may occur even due to certain environmental conditions as well. If you notice over here, this actually tries to show you the copying process, and if you notice over here, there is a blue line over here, and that shows you there is an error. Means it has misread it, or some error has been caused because of certain genetic changes caused either by environmental factors or non-environmental factors. Okay, at the genetic level there might be an error caused because of the way the sequences present within the DNA were read. Okay, and as a result of which, uh, the whole thing changes. It gives it a new identity. We know about variation during sexual reproduction, and that variation is easy to explain because as we have discussed, we'll take the case of humans itself. We have 50% coming from the father, 50% coming from the mother. So the mother is a different individual, father is a different individual. Okay, and there is 50% genetic material uh, donated by the father, 50 from the mother, and totally we have 100% individual, a diploid individual. Now there is different genetic material mixing up. When there is mixing up this material, you have a new individual being formed, causing a variation. That is why you see you are different from your mother and father, though you are also similar to your mother and father. You have shades of your mother and of your father as well, but despite that, uh, you are unique. You are not identical to your father or mother. You may share similarities with them, but you are unique, and no one is uh, like you. Even if you have a twin, you will have certain variations within you. Okay, because there is always a variation within twins. Maybe not at the phenotype level. At the phenotype level is meaning the characteristic what you see. You may look alike. It doesn't always mean that you will be same with respect to your likings, your feelings, and with respect to other biological characteristics or traits. Okay. Now, to understand variation in population, we'll take example of this beetles, which has been mentioned in your textbook, and this is a very good example to understand how variation in a population brings about influences basically evolution. Okay, so here we have a group of 12 red beetles living in green bushes, and they reproduce sexually. So obviously they are likely to develop variations. Remember a few things that have been mentioned. There are 12 red beetles and they are growing in a green bush. It clearly mentioned is growing in a green bush. So when red beetles grow in a green bush, they are easily visible, and their natural predators, meaning those who hunt for them, who eat them, are the crows. So such red beetles, when they roam around in green bushes, they are very much visible to the crows. Okay, and are likely to be eaten up. So we'll discuss three situations out here to understand variation in population among this red beetles. So in this case, we have seen over here there are red beetles. They are not 12 over here, but we see one green beetle. Actually, there are 12 red beetles, which is not shown over here. And during sexual reproduction, due to the mixing up of the genetic material, they happen to have a green beetle also coming as a result of this reproduction. Okay, now this crows that you can see these red beetles in this green bush, and they start eating up this. But who survives in the bargain is this lone green beetle. Why does he survive? Because he's not visible to the crows, because his color is giving him protection. See, it's a green beetle in a green bush, so difficult. You may have noticed sometimes you have get a green snake in the grass. Will you be able to notice that? No, unless if it moves, then you will be able to track or locate the snake because of the movement, but otherwise no, not at all. So similarly over here, these green beetles got protection in this green bush because of its color. It got camouflaged, as a result of which what happened was two things happened here. The red beetles got eaten up, or were being eaten up more frequently by the crows because they are more visible. The green beetles got an advantage because of the fact that they were not being hunted down by these crows. As a result, the population of these green beetles grew because of the natural protection that they got. And in the second instance here, you see that there are more green beetles than red beetles. Okay, so and you see it continues so much so that the green beetles continue to grow, and finally you have no red beetles left at all. So the green beetles, the population increased because of a survival advantage. The advantage that it got was because of its green color, and natural selection happened over here. Okay, nature selected for green beetles because that helped to survive. See, when we speak about natural selection refers to selecting the right individual in such a way that it can continue to grow further and reproduce further. Only the ones which are fit, or which um, have an ability to weather the storm, you can say, or which can survive against all odds, only that breed or that individual having those particular characteristics or traits have can is selected to reproduce and go further. Okay, and such individuals are considered to be stronger, and that's why those which are not strong are eliminated or get extinct, as we see over here. So the red beetles basically got eliminated because of the crows, of course, and the green beetles increased in number, though they were a result of a sexual reproduction over here, which it was like an anomaly, or you can say um, a recessive characteristic. See, red beetles, if you see, they are more in number over here, showing that it's a dominant trait, the color, whereas green is a recessive trait. But the green color beetle overtook that bush mainly because of the survival advantage because of its color. Let's take another second situation. So same thing, once again we have 12 red beetles living in the green bush, and again because of a sexual reproduction, now this time we consider that it gives rise to a blue beetle rather than a green beetle. Now, but in this case, even the blue beetles can be seen by the crows. Okay, so it doesn't really give it some advantage. As a result of which, what happens is red beetles are growing, and blue beetles are also growing, but at a very smaller pace compared to the red beetles. And you see there are only few sorry blue beetles compared to the number of red beetles out here. Now in this case we are not considering the crow at all, but we consider a situation wherein unfortunately an elephant happens to pass by through the area where this bush is, where these beetles are growing, and it happens to stamp or trample this bush. Okay, and here you see it is an elephant foot that is being placed on this bush. Just considering this scenario, what happens is majority of the beetles that were occupying this bush were red. And since they were in majority, what happened was that these red beetles got killed, or in other words, got eliminated. Since the blue beetles were less in number, they happened to survive, okay, since they were in less numbers. And these blue beetles, as you see over here, grew in number. Now, there was no survival advantage as such for these blue beetles, okay, unlike in the previous case where the color gave the green beetles an advantage over the red beetles. Here there is absolutely no advantage. There is no survival advantage. They were just lucky. By chance, they were just lucky that they were in small numbers, and the elephant set foot on the area where they were, which was largely occupied by the red beetles. So the red beetles got eliminated, whereas the few blue beetles that were there and which uh, luckily survived the trampling got larger piece of land where they could grow. I mean, that allowed them even access to the resources available to grow. They need food and area to grow. Okay, there is no competition. So otherwise, the blue beetles were in competition with the red beetles, as seen over here. Now that the red beetles are taken out of the equation, there are only blue beetles over here to survive. So it's left up to them, which means they can sexually reproduce and multiply further. This is what is seen over here. So no survival advantage whatsoever. Just it looks to this situation, we look at how it provides diversity, okay, but without any adaptation. Coming to the third situation, I've kept this part up over here to see to show you the two scenarios here where the blue beetles are growing and an elephant comes through and eliminates most of the red beetles such that only the blue beetles survive and grow. In this third scenario, which we see down out here, these red beetles are growing happily, but then we consider a scenario wherein the bushes suffer from a disease. So as a result of which, what happens, the food becomes less for these big fat beetles. When the food becomes less or when we go on dieting, what happens? We become thin, okay? We lose weight. So similarly over here, in this case, we see that the big fat red beetles uh, lose weight and they become smaller. Basically, it's trying to show you that it has lost weight and shrunk in size, okay, and it is continued over here because of the fact that the plants in that bushes suffered from disease. Now this situation continues, but then we see that it has come back to its original site. This is when the plant disease is eliminated and enough food is available for the beetles to come back to the normal site. See, such a type of a change is not inherited. We gain weight, we lose weight. Doesn't mean that our children also will lose weight or gain weight just because we have done so. That is purely a physical phenomenon, not a genetic phenomenon. Okay, it is not inherited. This type of changes are not inherited at all. So this is just a third scenario that we have a look at. So evolution is brought about by certain tools or certain means. We'll just go through the four types of mechanisms of evolution. The first and the most important one is mutation. Okay, mutations bring about have been responsible for a lot of evolution, okay, that we see today. And today we even when we discuss about the COVID virus, okay, now we are dealing, the world is actually dealing with a mutation in the virus. Viruses always undergo mutation because they are fragile. Okay, their copying process is not 100%. The likelihood of undergoing mutation is very high in case of virus. So such a mutation, a small amount of the mutation happened in the spike protein of this COVID virus, as a result of which it has undergone certain changes and become apparently more infectious. Okay, so leaving that aside, coming to mutation. What is actually mutation? Mutation is a sudden change in the DNA sequence, a change that can even sometimes lead to an altogether new individual. It causes variation, it generates variation. A change, as we say the definition, a sudden change in the DNA sequence leads to a change, generates variation. Okay, example is evolution of single green or blue beetle, which later gave rise to more. Before they were all red beetles. In the second case, we discuss about natural selection, the one we spoke about in the first case, where in the first scenario we saw how red beetles got eliminated, okay, because they were easily visible by their predators, that is the crows, whereas the green beetles, they got naturally selected because of their color. They were green in color, roaming around in green bushes, which made it harder for their predators to to locate them and eat them. As a result of which their population grew. The evolution of the green beetles was caused because of natural selection. Uh, when we speak about evolution, we can't forget about Charles Darwin, who was instrumental, just like how Gregor Mendel was in noting down and observing about genetic factors. He observed about evolutionary factors. Okay, so he was responsible for putting down, you can say, the laws of evolution. And in his work, he noticed finches that were present in Galapagos Islands, and he noticed that there were a lot of these finches which had short beak, and they grew in number because there were a lot of they were feeding on insects which were freely available, worms were freely available on the island. But as they grew in number, the food, that is the worms and the thing, and the insects, reduced in number. Okay, there was a lot of competition, as a result of which survival became difficult for them. So then, over a period of time, certain finches uh, developed long beaks, and these finches with long beaks could use their long beaks to fish out, or you can say go deeper into the soil and get insects or those other worms which may not be present on the surface but deeper into the soil, giving them an additional resource. Means they just did not have to depend on what was available on the surface, but they could dig deeper and get uh, more food resources, which gave them a natural advantage over those with short beaks. So, thus from there came about evolution of finches with larger beaks. This comes under the purview of natural selection. Coming to the third mechanism of evolution, that is the genetic drift. We have discussed about genetic drift in case of the blue beetles. Now, the blue beetle, there was no particular natural selection happening there, no advantage there. It's just that they were lucky. They got lucky because of their less numbers. They got lucky to which gave them an to ability to survive, reproduce, and grow more in number. So genetic drift refers to the same thing, that changes in frequency of some lucky genes in a population, even though they do not give them any survival advantage. And coming to the fourth mechanism of evolution is the migration. Uh, Migration, which we have not discussed over here, is the evolution of pink beetle. In a, just put in a very plain way, migration leads to evolution. For example, our forefathers or our ancestors long back migrated from a different continent. Okay, and we are now a result of that. So when this migration happens, which happens even till today, migration has been happening since the start of humans. Okay, and migration has been happening for various reasons, mainly for resources. It could be food. Today it is for even mostly for jobs. And migration happen. We move from one country to another, one state to another, to feed ourselves, to feed our families. And when we migrate, we happen to pair up with individuals of that particular place, which are not from our place. Let's say you have a boy from Goa or India that would be traveling all the way to, let's say, US for job. He settles down over there and he marries a girl who is from Europe. So she's also not from the North America. She's from Europe, but she has also come down over there for job prospect. And these two individuals from different continents, they come together. Now they their offspring will be a mixture of this genetic combination from two different continents. So we may all look alike phenotypically, similar, you may say, but genetically we have certain variations, certain changes. So when these two sets of chromosomes having good amount of variations come together, so they lead to more variation. And if it takes time for certain variation to be stabilized and move further, to evolve, as you may call it. And finally, the evolution happens over a period of time, and that the effect of that evolution will be seen, or effect of that change or this variation will be seen after successive generations, depending on what advantage it gives that individual because of that union of those particular genes. And this is brought about because of migration, so movement by organism from one place to another. So in case of beetles, it was noticed that You have beetles coming from one location, moving to another location, and thereby giving you evolution of pink beetles. Now, we have spoken about evolution and how different things give it an advantage, maybe the traits giving it an advantage. When we speak about evolution, we have to consider uh, traits or characteristics, and because of this certain characteristics, evolution proceeds further, giving it a survival advantage. For example, there is a place in India where the in that location the individuals have their red blood cells, okay, are sickle celled. Okay, now having sickle cell, which means that it gives them, otherwise it gives them an advantage over certain protozoans. You have to remember, malaria is caused by a protozoa, and this protozoa, that is plasmodium, uh, it survives, or it to survive, it needs a full-fledged RBC that you and I possess. In this location, they have the sickle cell RBCs, which means they suffer from anemia because of less of RBC. But because of the deformed RBC, the um, plasmodium or the protozoan cannot flourish. So these individuals, though the situation is endemic to that particular region, that means just restricted to that location, they have survived merely because they have got the advantage of never being affected by malaria because of their abnormal RBC, and they are able to survive because of that. So these are traits which get selected by nature because of an advantage afforded to them. So these are traits inherited. There will be traits which are acquired as well because of the nature. Now there is a clear distinction between inherited and acquired traits, and one must be knowledgeable about that or sure about that. Inherited traits are those which are passed on from one generation to another, successive generation. We do not have control over them. They are controlled by our genes. Examples are many. Examples mentioned over here is the hair color, shape of the earlobe, eye color, feet shape, and so on. Acquired traits are those that we acquire or we gain over our lifetime. That could be number of things like learning to ride a bike, learning to play a guitar or any musical instrument. Just because you know to play a musical instrument does not mean that your child will automatically know how to play an instrument or will be successful at playing an instrument. Okay, that is something that is learned over a period of time, not inherited, not passed on by your genes. Okay, from one successful generation to another. Okay, so this is something not acquired because of your ability to gain that, or because of your mental aptitude or mental attitude, you can say, to acquire that particular trait, which we do. That could be gaining a degree or learning something new, or as mentioned over here, the muscles of weightlifting. So you go to the gym, you get your muscles. Doesn't mean that your children will also get those muscles. No, not at all. Then you have, maybe if you cut yourself or burnt yourself, you receive a scar. That scar is not passed on to the next generation. You don't have to worry about that. Okay. When we speak about evolution, we have to speak about formation of new species. Okay. We have spoken about variation leading to evolution. Now we speak about speciation. Speciation is origin of new species from an existing species. Okay, and evolution leads to speciation. Here is an example that we'll go through to understand what exactly is speciation. So we see locality 1 or locality and locality 2, two different localities, and we see there are red beetles as well as green beetles. Now red beetles are easily eaten by the crows. As a result, green beetles continue to grow in this locality 1. In the second location, we see that there is basically locality 2 has little may have one or two crows or no crows at all. As a result of which, what will happen is that the red beetles will survive and reproduce in locality 2. Now, there is not much migration seen from one locality to another, which means there's no mixing up happening in major amounts or in large amounts. Maybe one or two beetles may move from one location to another. So since there is not much migration between the two localities, or the beetles from the two localities remain isolated from each other. As a result of which, in each locality, variations or evolution is brought about either because of mutation, genetic drift, natural selection, and maybe a little bit amount of migration as well. After a long time, it is noticed that the beetles from locality 1 cannot breed with beetles from locality 2 before they had the capability of breeding with each other, but now they don't have the capability of breeding with each other, which means that, in other words, that we have two distinct type of beetles or distinct species of beetles that have evolved in these two localities, which are unable to reproduce or breed with each other. So as a result of which, new species are formed, resulting in speciation. So we have spoken about Charles Darwin. So Charles Darwin, when he thought about evolution, his concept of evolution was based on the idea that new species were formed because of some variations that occurred in organisms, and nature played a very crucial and important role in selecting the organisms having suitable variations which gave them certain advantages. Important point to note was, when we speak about migration, the flow of genes from one area to another or from one individual to another is brought about this because of this interbreeding between two populations. Okay, so when we speak about gene flow, the term gene flow refers to the exchange of genetic material by interbreeding between populations of either same species or between individuals within a population. Okay, so gene flow refers to like how a river flows. So it just like gene flow refers to actually the intermixing of the genetic material between two individuals in a population, giving rise to more and more variation, and variation ultimately leads to evolution of a population. So this is all that we have in the chapter of heredity and evolution. So we started from learning about how Mendel started his work, his experiments, the Mendelian laws of inheritance. Then we moved on to variation, learning about evolution and the mechanisms of evolution, and how we used the beetles, okay, the blue beetles, the green beetles, the red beetles, to understand the various concepts of evolution, or how variation brings about evolution, and how evolution leads to formation of new characteristics, new traits, and even new species. So that's all in this video and in this chapter of heredity and evolution. I hope you have enjoyed watching the videos. If you like watching the videos, please click the like button and share it with your friends and classmates. Do not forget to subscribe and click on the bell icon to receive notifications whenever new video is posted. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Thank you.